All right, let's dive into the world of relationships.
Okay.
But not just, the surface stuff.
Right.
Like, we're going deep today. We're trying to find those hidden gems of wisdom that can actually, help us build those stronger connections, more fulfilling ones.
Yeah, it's about going beyond those typical cliches.
Yeah.
And really getting to that intricate dance between how we are on the inside and how that affects our relationships with other people.
For sure. And we're gonna, this really interesting source. It's a chapter from a self-help book, and it's gaining popularity with a group called the Church of Real Talk, led by Minister Robinson.
Interesting. So we're looking at how these ideas that we usually think about for personal growth and spirituality can actually help us in our relationships with other people.
Exactly. Now, the chapter uses this fictional character named Ava, who lives in this bustling city called Evermore. So it's kind of fun to follow her story while we break down all these complicated ideas.
Right.
But the big question here is, how can we use this knowledge to build better relationships in our own lives?
It's about finding the things that really speak to you in your own life and using them.
Love that.
Yeah.
I am all about the actionable advice. So the chapter kicks off by stressing how important self-awareness is.
Okay.
Before you can build a house, you need to make sure you've got a strong foundation, right?
It's about knowing what you need, what you value, what your boundaries are, what makes you tick, what are your non-negotiables.
Right.
Until you know those things, it's hard to connect with other people.
It's true. It's like trying to run through a maze blindfolded or something.
Yeah.
But here's where it gets interesting. The source doesn't stop there. It also talks about how everyone else is carrying around their own baggage, their hopes and fears and all that.
They each have their own invisible backpack, right?
Yes.
Full of their past, their beliefs, and their dreams.
Yeah.
Understanding that can totally change how we approach relationships.
This is kind of blowing my mind.
Yeah.
It's not just about me, it's about understanding that the other person is a whole other world.
It's a big shift in perspective.
Right.
What if, instead of just reacting to what someone says, we try to figure out why they're acting that way?
Yeah.
That's where empathy starts.
So we're talking about taking off our judgmental glasses and actually seeing things from their point of view.
Exactly. And that brings us to another key thing the source talks about. Communication. It might seem obvious, but communication can make or break a relationship.
Oh, I'm with you there. We've all been in situations where things get totally misconstrued, or we just feel misunderstood. So how do we get past those surface conversations and really connect?
The source says it's not just about talking, it's about really listening.
Okay.
Active listening. Think of it like a muscle you need to exercise.
I like that.
Next time you're talking to someone, really focus on reflecting what they say back to them. That way you're not just waiting for your turn to talk.
Right.
You're making sure that you both actually understand each other.
Oh, wow. Yeah. It's am I really listening, or am I just planning my next brilliant point?
Yeah.
Guilty as charged.
We've all been there. The main point is active listening means really engaging all your senses. You're not just hearing the words.
Right.
You're paying attention to their body language and everything.
So it's about being fully present in the moment.
Yes.
And tuning out all the distractions.
Yes.
It's tough, but I can see how that would make a huge difference.
It really does. When both people feel heard and understood, it creates trust and intimacy.
Okay, so self-awareness is the foundation. Communication's the bridge, and active listening is how we unlock that deeper connection.
Exactly.
What else does the source say about building stronger relationships?
Well, it talks about something that could be scary and exciting. Vulnerability.
Okay.
It says that letting ourselves be seen, flaws and all, is essential for real intimacy.
This is where things get interesting and honestly a bit scary for me. I get that opening up can lead to deeper connections, but how do we know when we've shared too much?
That's a valid concern. The source acknowledges that vulnerability can be a double-edged sword.
Okay, it's good to hear.
It's not about telling everyone your deepest secrets.
Right.
It's about understanding what kind of vulnerability is appropriate for each relationship. Think about it. You wouldn't share the same things with a casual acquaintance as you would with your best friend or partner.
That's true. So we're talking about being mindful of the situation.
Yeah.
And the level of trust we've built.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance between protecting yourself and letting yourself be seen.
I like that. It's a journey, not a destination, right?
Absolutely.
It's making me think about my own patterns, you know? Do I tend to hold back too much, or am I too quick to overshare?
The first step to creating healthier connections is to become aware of your own tendencies around vulnerability.
That's really insightful. So we've got self-awareness, communication, vulnerability. But what about those difficult emotions? How do we deal with those?
That's a great question. The source talks about empathy as an essential skill for navigating relationships.
Okay.
It's not just about saying, I understand.
Right.
It's about truly putting yourself in someone else's shoes.
Okay.
Imagine stepping into their world, seeing things from their perspective, feeling what they feel.
Wow. Okay. That sounds pretty challenging, to be honest.
It can be. The source says that one of the biggest things blocking empathy is our own judgments and assumptions.
Okay.
We tend to see the world only through our own lens, and that makes it hard to understand other people's experiences.
Like we're looking through a filter we don't even realize is there.
Exactly. The source challenges us to notice those filters and try to set them aside. It's about seeing the person separate from their actions or opinions.
Yeah.
Recognizing that everyone has their own story and their perspective is valid.
That's powerful.
It is.
Like, even if I disagree with your choices, I can still see you as a person.
Exactly.
Someone worthy of respect and understanding.
That shift in mindset can make all the difference when you're having tough conversations.
Wow, this is some deep stuff.
It is.
We're just scratching the surface, and I feel like I'm getting a whole new perspective on relationships.
That's great.
But I'm wondering how all this theory translates into practice. Like, how do we actually use these ideas?
Lucky for us, the source gives a whole list of things we can do to navigate relationships better.
Okay, give me the good stuff.
It starts by emphasizing active listening, which we've already talked about.
Right, so really listening, being present, reflecting back what you hear.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It also talks about setting boundaries.
Okay.
Clearly communicating your needs and limits.
Boundaries are so important. It's about protecting your own well-being.
And respecting other people's boundaries.
Yeah.
Recognizing their right to make their own choices.
Yes.
Boundaries create a framework for healthy relationships.
It's about creating a safe space for everyone involved.
Exactly. Another thing they emphasize is expressing gratitude.
Oh, yeah. Showing appreciation can make such a difference.
It's about acknowledging the good things people bring to your life.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be big gestures. Even a simple thank you can go a long way.
It's the little things that matter.
It is.
Okay, so active listening, boundaries, gratitude. What else?
They also suggest seeking feedback.
Interesting. What do they mean by that?
Being open to hearing how other people see your actions and words.
Okay.
It's a chance to learn and grow.
I can see how that could be helpful, but also a little scary.
It can be.
It takes courage to ask for feedback,
It does.
especially if you don't know what you're going to hear.
The source emphasizes that feedback, when it's given constructively,
Yeah.
can be really insightful. It helps us see our blind spots
Okay.
and learn how to do better.
So we need to approach feedback with an open mind and be willing to learn.
Exactly. And remember, feedback is a gift.
Yeah.
It lets us see ourselves through someone else's eyes and become better people.
This is amazing.
Yeah,
I feel like I have a whole toolkit now for building better relationships.
that's great.
Active listening, boundaries, gratitude, seeking feedback. Anything else to add to our arsenal?
Well, they also highlight the importance of self-compassion.
Self-compassion.
Yes.
That's an interesting one. What does that mean?
It's about being kind to yourself, especially when you make mistakes or things are hard in your relationships.
That makes sense. It's easy to beat ourselves up when things go wrong.
It is.
But that doesn't really help.
No.
The source reminds us that we're all human.
Yes.
We're all learning and growing.
Absolutely.
We need to give ourselves the same grace and compassion that we give others.
Exactly.
So it's about cutting ourselves some slack
Yes.
and realizing we're doing the best we can.
Exactly.
This is so insightful.
Yeah.
I'm already starting to see things differently. Okay, we've covered a lot today, from self-awareness and communication to vulnerability, empathy, and taking action.
There's a lot to take in.
It is, but I have a feeling there's even more to this chapter.
There is.
There's always more to learn about relationships.
Absolutely.
This is getting good.
Yeah.
I can't wait to dive even deeper.
Great. As we explore these ideas further, it's fascinating how relationships are always changing, you know?
Right, they're not just static, they evolve just like we do.
Exactly. So we need to be adaptable
Okay.
and open to change.
Yeah.
What works at one point might not work later on.
Right.
We need to be aware of how things shift as we grow.
It's It's like a dance, right?
Yeah.
You have to find that rhythm and flow together as you navigate the changes life throws at you.
I like that. Now, the source also talks about conflict.
Okay.
He says that conflict isn't something to avoid,
Oh, really?
but rather a chance for growth.
Usually we think of conflict as a bad thing.
Right, we want to avoid it,
Yeah.
but the source says we should lean into it
Okay.
in a constructive way.
In a constructive way. Okay.
It suggests that disagreements, when handled with respect and a willingness to listen,
Yeah.
can actually make relationships stronger.
So it's not about winning the argument. It's more about understanding each other.
Exactly. And remember, active listening and empathy, those are super important during conflict.
Yeah, I can see that.
It's about understanding what's behind the disagreement, not just the surface stuff.
You know, it reminds me of that saying, seek first to understand, then to be understood.
Oh yeah, I like that one.
It seems like that applies here.
Absolutely. When you really try to understand the other person,
Yeah.
you create space for open dialogue. And you can solve problems together.
It becomes we instead of me versus you.
Exactly. Does the source give any tips on how to handle conflict constructively?
I was just about to ask that.
Okay, great. It suggests using I statements to express your feelings.
Right.
Without blaming the other person.
Oh, that's a classic. But it's important.
It is.
I've noticed that when I use I statements,
Yeah.
it helps me own my experience without putting the other person on the defensive.
It creates a more open atmosphere for conversation.
Okay.
So instead of saying, you always do this,
Yeah.
you could say, I feel hurt when this happens.
It's subtle, but it makes a big difference.
It does. Any other tips?
Yeah, what else?
Take breaks. If things get too heated, step away and cool off.
That's a good one. I've definitely said things I regretted in the heat of the moment.
We all have.
Taking a break helps me approach things more calmly later.
It gives you space to think and regulate your emotions.
Okay, so it's not about avoiding conflict. It's about managing it in a healthy way.
Exactly. Now, the source mainly focuses on romantic relationships.
Yeah.
But I wonder how this applies to other relationships.
Right, like friendships.
Yes. Friendships, family, even work.
Do these same ideas work there?
I think so. While the source focuses on romance, I think these principles apply everywhere. Self-awareness, communication, empathy, boundaries.
Right.
These are all important for any relationship.
It's like having a master key.
I like that.
It can open any door, even if the locks are a bit different.
Now, I'm curious, as you've been thinking about all this,
Yeah.
what's resonated with you the most?
What's really stood out to me is that relationships are always a work in progress.
Okay.
It's not about reaching some perfect state of harmony.
Right.
It's about embracing the ups and downs. This chapter has shown me that relationships are dynamic.
Yes.
And they need constant effort.
And adaptation.
Exactly. And I love how the source emphasizes self-compassion.
Oh yeah, that's important.
It's so easy to be self-critical, especially when things are tough.
It is.
But the source reminds us to be kind to ourselves.
Yes.
To acknowledge that we're doing our best and embrace the learning process.
That's such a crucial reminder.
It is. I'm also really struck by the idea of conflict as a chance for growth.
Oh, interesting.
I used to avoid conflict, but now I'm trying to see it as a way to deepen understanding.
That's a powerful shift in mindset.
It is.
What can be transformative.
Yeah.
When you approach conflict with curiosity and listening, you can unlock new levels of intimacy.
It's about seeing disagreements as opportunities, not threats.
Opportunities for growth and understanding.
But creating space where both people feel safe to share.
A space for vulnerability.
Yes.
Where differences are seen as strengths.
It's a beautiful vision of what relationships can be.
It is. We've covered a lot in this deep dive.
We have.
But there's still more to uncover.
Oh, for sure.
I think it's time to look at some specific examples.
Okay.
And real-life scenarios.
Yes, let's get practical.
Let's see how these ideas actually play out.
I like it. So let's try to apply some of the stuff to real-life situations,
Okay, yeah.
I'm thinking about conflict at work, disagreements with family, or even just starting a new friendship.
Those are all great examples.
Yeah.
How about we start with that work scenario?
Okay.
Imagine you're in a team meeting and everyone's disagreeing about a project.
Right.
Things are getting tense. People are digging in their heels. How would you use what we've learned to handle that?
Well, I think the first thing I try to do is remember that principle of seek first to understand. Instead of just jumping in to defend my own ideas, I'd really try to listen to what everyone else is saying and try to get where they're coming from,
That's a great start. And don't forget about active listening.
Right.
Reflecting what you hear, asking questions. Those can really help to lower the tension and make it more collaborative.
It's like taking a step back from all the emotions and saying, hold on, let's make sure we're all on the same page here.
Exactly. And then, once you've taken the time to understand everyone else, you can start to share your own thoughts in a way that's respectful but also firm.
Okay.
Remember those I statements?
Yes.
They're really useful in these kinds of situations.
So instead of saying, this idea is terrible, it'll never work,
Right.
I could say something like, I'm a bit worried about this approach because I don't see how it fits with our goal.
Exactly. You're expressing your concerns without blaming anyone.
Right.
Which makes it easier to have a productive conversation.
That's a good tip. What about disagreements with family members?
Oh, those could be tricky.
Yeah, there's so much history there, and emotions run high.
Absolutely. Family dynamics can be complex,
Uh-huh.
but the same principles still apply.
Okay.
You might just need to be a bit more careful how you use them.
I see.
Let's say you and your sibling keep clashing about how to care for an aging parent.
Okay.
How could you approach that with more self-awareness and empathy?
Well, I think for me it would start with understanding my own triggers.
Okay.
What are my fears in this situation?
Yeah.
Am I reacting based on things that happened in the past?
That's really important. A lot of times, our reactions in family conflicts come from deep-seated patterns and beliefs. Bringing those to light can help you understand your own behavior and communicate more effectively.
Okay.
And on the empathy side, you could try to see things from your siblings' point of view.
Yeah.
Even if you disagree.
Yeah.
What are their worries? What's driving their actions?
Okay. Yeah. Everyone has their own perspective, their own experiences.
Right. That invisible backpack we talked about.
Yes.
Taking the time to understand it can really help you find common ground.
I'm starting to see how all this connects. It's like having a whole new way of looking at relationships.
It is.
Now, before we wrap up, I wanted to touch on one more thing. Those early stages of a new friendship,
Right.
it can be awkward, Figuring out how much to share, how to build that trust.
Yeah. It's a balance between being open and protecting yourself.
Right. You want to be genuine, but you also don't want to get hurt.
Exactly.
So how do you find that balance?
Building trust takes time.
Okay.
Start slow, share a little about yourself, and see how they react.
Okay.
Look for signs that they're reciprocating. Are they sharing too?
Yeah.
Are they asking about you?
It's like testing the waters.
It is.
Before you jump in.
And remember, vulnerability goes both ways.
Right.
Healthy relationships are built on mutual trust and respect.
That's true. And even if things don't work out the way you hoped, it's still a learning experience.
It is. Every interaction teaches you something.
So, to recap what I've learned today, it's not just about romance,
Right?
These ideas apply to all our relationships, whether it's with colleagues, friends, family, or even ourselves.
It highlights how interconnected all our relationships are.
Yeah.
The skills you learn in one area can benefit you in others.
It's like a ripple effect.
Yes.
When we learn to communicate better, set boundaries, practice empathy, it makes all our relationships stronger.
And that's what this deep dive has been all about.
Yes.
Giving you the tools to build more meaningful connections.
We've covered so much today, from self-awareness and communication to vulnerability and empathy.
A lot to think about.
But this is just the start.
It is.
We hope this deep dive has inspired you to keep exploring these ideas.
And keep learning.
And remember, the conversation doesn't end here.
Right.
We'd love to hear your thoughts.
What resonated with you?
What challenges you're facing?
Any insights you've gained?
We're all in this together.
Yes.
And by sharing and supporting each other, we can build a more connected world.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
And until next time, keep exploring, keep connecting, and keep diving deep.
See you next time.